In the Scottish Highlands, a boy named Jimmy watches TV with his sisters and cousins. Without warning, a siren wails outside and their aunt slams the door shut, ordering the children not to move. The children grow terrified as the sounds of chaos erupt all around the house. Jimmy rushes to the door and calls out for his father. But the door suddenly begins to shake violently. The door flies open and zombie-like monsters known as the infected come storming inside. The creatures tear into the girls, consuming them without ever noticing Jimmy hidden behind the door. Jimmy seizes the chance to flee, but is forced to watch his mother being devoured in another room. As Jimmy races through the house, he watches his relatives turn into the infected one by one, but barely escapes outside. More infected block his path outside, so Jimmy sprints to the church to find his father. But the priest does not see the infected as a threat. He believes they have been saved and that this is Judgment Day. He presses his gold cross into Jimmy's hands and urges him to have faith. The infected smash through the windows and Jimmy flees. But his father refuses to move, choosing to await salvation. The creatures swarm the priest and bite him, transforming him into one of the infected. All of this destruction is the result of the deadly rage virus. Continental Europe pushes the virus back and seals the United Kingdom off from the rest of the world. Britain becomes a wasteland where the remaining survivors must struggle to stay alive. 28 years after the outbreak, a survivor community has settled on Lindisfarne Island, shielded by a tidal causeway. Today a boy named Spike is about to be taught how to kill his very first infected. His father Jamie is making breakfast when a crash from the bedroom reveals that his sick wife Isla has fallen. Both rush to her side and Isla panics the moment she hears that Spike is going out to train. A brief argument breaks out, but Isla settles down after only a few words. Isla suffers from constant memory loss and confusion, leaving her disoriented for much of the time. Back in the kitchen, Spike finds Sam waiting for him, who presents him with a brand new bow. As Spike and Jamie head out, the whole town cheers and wishes Spike the best of luck. At the gate, Jenny spells out the rules. Anyone who leaves may return, but no rescue will come for those who do not. Past rescue missions have already claimed far too many lives. Father and son cross the causeway together and step onto the mainland. Jamie shares stories of the old world, and Spike can barely imagine people ever living far from the sea. They cross a bridge into a dense forest, staying alert for any sign of danger. Deep in the forest, they come across a sluggish infected crawling along the ground with a bird perched on its back. As the creature pauses to eat worms, Spike draws his bow and fires an arrow straight into its neck, killing it instantly. A second infected sneaks up from behind, and Jamie drops it with a single arrow. The commotion draws more creatures, and Jamie kills another. But Spike pleads for him to spare the last one. Jamie beams with pride. Yet Spike himself feels unsettled by the act of taking a life. The two press on through the forest and spot some beautiful wildlife along the way. They stumble upon an abandoned house where an infected hangs upside down, a bag over its head and letters carved into its back. Jamie suspects someone captured this person while still human and used him as bait, only for him to turn. Jamie tells Spike to kill it, but the creature thrashes wildly and the boy freezes in fear. The infected breaks free, and the shock jolts Spike into firing an arrow that kills it through the head. Continuing on, they discover a half-devoured animal carcass lying on the ground. Spike glances upward and spots another dead animal hanging above. Spike feels the fear but refuses to let it stop him. For the first time that day, Jamie grows genuinely worried. Only an alpha infected could have done this. He tells Spike to move faster and stay completely silent as they push forward. Reaching an open field, they spot a massive horde of infected led by an alpha and sprint back into the forest as the chase begins. Even mid-chase, Jamie keeps coaching Spike, teaching him to shoot while running and to aim for the heart or the head. They race back to the abandoned house, cutting down every pursuing infected while searching desperately for shelter. They find the attic hatch and hold themselves up inside, sealing it shut before the horde can reach them. The attic becomes their refuge, but the alpha infected refuses to abandon the area below. Jamie tells Spike that alphas are larger, more intelligent, and require far too many arrows to bring down. With no arrows remaining, the only option for now is to wait. Spike beats himself up over missed shots and hesitation, but Jamie assures him he did remarkably well for a first time. In the middle of the night, they spot a figure moving with a light below, and Jamie identifies it as the quarantine patrol. On the other side, a distant fire catches Spike's eye, and his curiosity grows. But Jamie swiftly changes the subject. When Spike finally drifts off, a disturbing nightmare grips him. His mother drowning and everything around him collapsing. Jamie shakes Spike awake. The house itself is trembling and they must get out immediately. They dash outside just in time as the roof caves in behind them. Knowing the noise will draw the infected, Jamie and Spike sprint toward home at full speed. The causeway lies submerged under the high tide, but the water is shallow enough to wade through. A flock of birds erupts into the sky and the alpha infected charges onto the causeway in pursuit. Spike stumbles several times in the water, but Jamie pulls him back up each time as they push for the far side. They push hard enough to reach solid ground on the other side. Jamie shouts and blasts his whistle to signal the guards at the gate. The guards flood the area with lights, locate the Alpha, and showered with arrows until it stumbles. The Alpha rises quickly, so the next arrow is set alight before being fired. The flaming arrow finally brings the Alpha down and Jamie hauls Spike toward the gate. Jenny holds them at the gate for a moment to confirm neither is infected before finally letting them in. That evening, the community throws a party to honor Spike's safe return and his first kill. Jamie recounts every detail of the adventure, but Spike grows uneasy with how enthusiastically everyone celebrates the killing. The crowd hoists Spike onto a chair and lets him join in the drinking. The overwhelm finally hits and Spike bolts outside, where he is sick. In that moment, he spots Jamie slipping away with another woman and is crushed to realize his father is having an affair. Spike returns home to find Sam keeping watch over a sleeping Isla. After recapping his journey, Spike brings up the mysterious fire he saw from the attic. Sam believes the fire belongs to a man called Dr. Kelson, and hints that Jamie has avoided the subject for a reason, leaving it at that. The next morning, Isla wakes up in agony with a pounding headache and calls for medicine, leaving Spike at a complete loss. Spike is barely awake himself and feels utterly helpless in the situation. He has no idea where to look for the medicine she needs. When Jamie arrives home, Spike cannot bear to face him and leaves the room. Minutes later, Spike steels himself and confronts Jamie about why he has not brought Kelson in to help Isla. Jamie explains that Kelson lost his mind years ago and begins to recount a disturbing incident from 15 years back. Jamie and his group of foragers discovered thousands of corpses arranged in neat rows around a massive fire. Kelson emerged from the darkness, dragging bodies toward the flames, then casually waved at the group, sending them fleeing in horror. Spike demands Isla receive proper help and throws Jamie's affair in his face, which ends with Jamie slapping him. Jamie instantly regrets it, but Spike has already bolted upstairs to be with his mother. When Jamie tries to follow, Spike pulls out a knife and orders him to stay away from them. Jamie disarms him with ease, but rather than escalate things, he hands the knife back to Spike and walks away. Later, Spike deliberately sets a barn on fire and runs to the guards, claiming the whole town is needed to fight the blaze. He volunteers to stand guard while the adults are occupied, then vanishes the moment they are out of sight. Spike collects Isla and the two slip through the gate and head across the causeway toward the mainland. Isla panics when she realizes where she is and desperately calls out for Jamie and her father. Spike soothes her fears and convinces her that a doctor on the mainland will help her. After a full day of walking, they find an abandoned building to shelter in for the night. Bored on watch, Isla wakes Spike to share memories from before the outbreak, telling him he reminds her of her father. As their conversation continues, Isla begins addressing Spike as her father. He gently tells her to rest and takes over the watch himself. But exhaustion takes over and Spike falls asleep as well. With no one on guard, an infected creeps silently into the building. The creature chews on Spike's shoelaces, then spits them out upon discovering they are not food. The infected leans towards Spike's face and is moments from biting when something yanks it away. Spike jolts awake, convinced it was a dream, until he notices the infected lying dead beside him. Isla claims no memory of the event, but a flashback reveals she smashed the creature's skull against a statue. Elsewhere, a squad of soldiers is being hunted down by a massive horde of infected. They fire at as many creatures as they can, but several soldiers are wounded and ammunition is nearly gone. The infected close in and begin biting the soldiers, who start turning one by one. The remaining soldiers are forced to gun down their infected comrades, and only 3 break free. The 3 survivors reach a tunnel, seal the gate, and shoot down any infected that press too close. Pushing deeper into the tunnel, they are suddenly ambushed by an Alpha infected. The Alpha seizes one soldier, rips his head off using a torn-out spine, then swings the spine to knock down another. The lone surviving soldier fires at the infected surging through the door and flees the tunnel. Back with Spike and Isla, the two press on while Isla's delusions grow harder to manage. When they pass an old statue, Isla becomes convinced it will guide her back to a hospital. Isla remains fixated on the idea of being taken back to the hospital. She speaks with Spike at length, still believing he is her father. Isla's nose begins to bleed, and the scent draws an infected, which Spike swiftly takes down with an arrow. A drop of the creature's blood lands on Isla's forehead, and Spike races to wipe it off before she can touch it. More infected quickly converge on them, and the two run for their lives while Spike fires arrows at anything that gets close. They reach a gas station and wrestle with the door before finally forcing their way inside. The interior is thick with flammable fumes, making it difficult to breathe. The infected pour in behind them, and the chase continues through the station. Spike snatches up whatever he can find and hurls it at the creatures to buy time. The creatures corner them at a dead end. But a ceiling hatch bursts open, and a soldier named Eric orders them to take cover. Eric opens fire on the infected, and the gunfire ignites the fumes, triggering a massive explosion. Fire engulfs every infected in the room, and despite their frantic attempts to flee, all of them die. Isla and Spike stayed well hidden and emerge completely unharmed. The moment a path clears, the three rush out of the burning building. As Isla suffers through nausea and a headache, Eric turns to Spike for direction and panics when Spike has nothing to offer. Eric ultimately decides to travel with them and volunteers to carry Isla along the way. A few hours into the trek, they stop to rest and share some apples. Eric checks his phone but finds no signal and barely any battery remaining. Since Spike has never seen a phone, Eric explains how it works and shares a photo of his girlfriend. Having never encountered plastic surgery, Spike finds the woman's appearance distinctly strange. Right then the battery dies and Eric tosses the phone aside. They set off again, but Isla drifts ahead on her own after hearing an unexpected sound. She follows the sound to a pregnant, infected woman lying alone and abandoned. The creature lunges at first, but Isla gently calms her down and helps her through the delivery. When Spike and Eric arrive, Isla directs Spike to cut the cord and washes the newborn clean with water. The infected mother suddenly snarls and lunges forward, and Eric shoots her dead without hesitation. Eric moves to kill the newborn as well, but Spike and Isla examine her closely and confirm she is fully human. Just as Eric prepares to fire anyway, an infected arm bursts through the ceiling and drags him out. The creature drops inside and reveals itself to be a massive alpha, which immediately turns its fury on the group. Sprinting away, Spike fires arrow after arrow at the alpha, not enough to wound it badly, but enough to slow its chase. Spike, Isla, and the baby leap from the train car, but the alpha jumps down too and continues the pursuit. At that moment, Dr. Kelson appears from nowhere and drops the alpha with a sedative dart. Kelson introduces himself and explains that coating his body in iodine shields him from the virus. He retrieves Eric's severed head, names the alpha Samson, and mentions he has lived in the area for 3 years as its sole guardian. Spike begs Kelson to help Isla and the doctor agrees, leading them to his bone temple, a shrine built to honor the dead. Thousands of bones have been woven into great pillars and skulls, stacked into a towering monument. Kelson has incorporated both human and infected remains because, in his view, they are fundamentally the same. Eric's head is placed in the fire, and once the flesh is gone, Kelson cleans the skull and invites Spike to add it to the tower. Kelson hears the story of the baby's birth and concludes that the placenta shielded her from the infection. After running a series of tests on Isla, Kelson delivers the devastating news that she has terminal cancer. As Isla weeps, Kelson explains that while others suffer illness, she alone remains safe from the rage virus itself. Spike breaks down, unable to accept that there is no medicine to find and no cure to steal. Isla pulls Spike close and admits she had long suspected the cancer, though she had never been certain. With Spike's gaze directed elsewhere, Isla quietly signals Kelson to grant her a merciful end. Kelson shares the ideas of memento mori and memento amoris with Spike, to always remember death, and to die in love at the right moment. Isla places the baby in Spike's arms, then walks with Kelson into the forest where he ends her suffering. Spike holds on to every cherished memory of his mother until Kelson returns carrying Isla's skull. Spike hands the baby to Kelson, then climbs the tower and places his mother's skull at the very peak as the sun rises. At dawn, Samson is spotted charging across the field and Kelson rushes the children into a hidden pit built for protection. Samson finds them, roars at the lid, and claws to get it open, but ultimately fails and retreats. They believe the threat has passed, but Samson smashes back through the wood, seizes Kelson, and begins to choke him. Spike grabs one of Kelson's sedative syringes and drives it into Samson's arm, dropping him instantly and saving the doctor. Afterward, Spike begins the long journey back to town, with the baby nestled in a basket. He names the baby Isla and leaves her outside the gate with a note for Jenny to find. The note reaches Jamie, who learns from it that Spike has left and has no intention of being found. The letter also states that Kelson is not insane and that the baby poses no danger. A desperate Jamie rushes out of the settlement to find his son, but the high tide cuts his path short. 28 days pass, and Spike roams the mainland, living off whatever wildlife he can hunt. When an infected comes for him, Spike puts it down with a single strike. More infected close in from behind, forcing Spike to move fast. A towering rock wall blocks his path, but only one infected tracks him there, and Spike dispatches it as well. A sharp gasp makes Spike spin around to find a grown-up Jimmy, still wearing his father's gold cross. Jimmy is struck by Spike's fighting ability and reveals that he leads his own crew. As more infected pour in, the group leaps from the wall and tears through every last creature in just minutes. They laugh as they fight, thriving on the raw thrill of the slaughter. Jimmy lets out a triumphant cheer and suggests to Spike that the two of them ought to stick together.